The courtroom froze the second the officer lost control, a moment so sudden and shocking that it felt as if time itself had stalled. In front of the judge, seasoned lawyers, and a jury that had been listening intently just seconds earlier, the cop slammed the black woman hard against the cold wooden wall, the sound echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. His body moved on instinct or anger, no one could tell, but his hand shot up and pressed dangerously close to her face, his clenched fist hovering as if he were seconds away from striking her. Gasps rippled through the room as spectators leaned forward in disbelief, some covering their mouths, others frozen in their seats. She had come to testify, to speak her truth under oath, not to be assaulted by the very authority sworn to uphold the law. Her eyes widened, not just in fear, but in shock at the sheer audacity of what was happening in plain view of the court. The bailiff hesitated for a fraction of a second, torn between rank and duty, while the judge, an experienced figure who had seen decades of legal battles, slowly rose from his seat, his face drained of color. The abuse of power was undeniable and brutally clear, captured from multiple angles by courtroom cameras that never blinked, never looked away, recording every movement, every reaction, every breath. The officer's badge, once a symbol of trust and protection, now gleamed under the lights like an accusation, drawing attention to the contrast between authority and accountability. Lawyers on both sides stood abruptly, papers slipping from their hands as they shouted objections that no one needed to explain. The woman's voice trembled as she tried to speak, but her words were swallowed by the chaos and the pounding of her own heartbeat. Yet her composure, even in that moment, spoke louder than any testimony she could have given. The jury watched, no longer impartial observers of a case, but witnesses to an act that shattered any remaining illusion of restraint. In that instant, careers unraveled, narratives collapsed, and the thin line between justice and injustice was exposed for everyone to see. When the judge finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that silenced the room completely, not with volume, but with authority sharpened by outrage. He ordered the officer restrained and removed from the courtroom immediately. The bailiff, now fully aware of the gravity of the moment, moved without hesitation, placing himself between them. Cameras continued to roll, capturing the officer's retreat, the woman's quiet composure, and the collective realization that something irreversible had just occurred. In that instant, the balance of power shifted completely. What began as an abuse of authority ended as a public reckoning, sparked not by force, but by clarity. Her calm sentence did what shouting never could. It exposed the truth, dismantled the illusion of control, and reminded everyone present that the law does not belong to those who wield it recklessly, but to those who stand firm within it. What no one expected was her calm. With her back still pressed against the courtroom's cold wooden wall and the officer's furious breathing heavy in her face, she did not flinch, cry, or raise her voice. The room was loud with tension, but quiet in sound, every eye locked on the two of them as if time itself had slowed. The officer's hand trembled near her shoulder, his authority slipping with every second he stood there, red-faced and exposed. In that fragile pause when chaos could have fully erupted, she lifted her chin just slightly and met his eyes with a steadiness that no badge could command. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and measured, almost gentle, yet every word landed like a gavel strike. She reminded him that he was not in an alley or behind closed doors, but in a courtroom, under oath, surrounded by cameras, witnesses, and the very laws he claimed to enforce. She pointed out that every action he took in that moment was being documented, recorded, and preserved, not just for the court, but for history. The sentence was short, but its weight was unbearable. It forced the officer to confront the reality he had momentarily forgotten, that power does not belong to rage, and uniforms do not erase accountability. A ripple moved through the courtroom as murmurs spread among the spectators, attorneys exchanged stunned glances, and the jury shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The officer's posture changed almost instantly. His shoulders stiffened, his grip loosened, and the confidence that had fueled his aggression drained from his face. For the first time since the outburst began, he looked unsure, caught between impulse and consequence. The judge, who had been frozen in disbelief, rose sharply from the bench, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, breaking the spell. His voice rang out with authority, ordering the officer to step away and be removed from the courtroom immediately. The bailiff, now fully aware of the gravity of the moment, moved without hesitation, placing himself between them. Cameras continued to roll, capturing the officer's retreat, the woman's quiet composure, and the collective realization that something irreversible had just occurred. In that instant, the balance of power shifted completely. What began as an abuse of authority ended as a public reckoning, sparked not by force, but by clarity. Within days, the video spread faster than anyone in that courtroom could have imagined, jumping from local news feeds to national broadcasts and then exploding across social media, where millions watched the moment on repeat, slowing it down frame by frame, analyzing every expression, every movement, every breath the officer took as his authority unraveled. Journalists began digging into his record, and what they found painted a pattern that could no longer be ignored. Previous complaints quietly dismissed, excessive force reports buried in paperwork, warnings that never reached the public. Internal Affairs opened a formal investigation, prosecutors announced the review, and the department placed him on immediate suspension, a move that felt less like accountability and more like damage control. Meanwhile, the woman he had tried to intimidate was suddenly everywhere, not because she sought attention, but because people saw in her the restraint and courage they wished existed more often in moments of unchecked power. Interviews poured in, yet she spoke carefully, focusing not on revenge, but on responsibility, reminding viewers that her experience was not unique, only unusually well documented. As days turned to weeks, the pressure mounted, forcing the department to act decisively. The officer was terminated, his badge revoked, his name no longer protected by silence, and criminal charges soon followed, marking a stunning reversal for a man once shielded by uniform and authority. Court filings revealed that the sentence that stopped him cold had become the turning point investigators could not dismiss, a clear line where power crossed into abuse in front of the very system meant to protect it. Activists cited the case as proof that calm truth can dismantle intimidation, while legal experts pointed out how quickly control evaporates when actions are exposed to light. The woman returned to her life, changed but unbroken, carrying the weight of what she represented while refusing to be defined solely by trauma. And the officer faded into a cautionary headline, his career undone, not by shouting crowds or violence, but by a single steady sentence that held up a mirror to his actions and forced the truth to stand unchallenged.